All right, welcome to The Explainer. Every now and then you see a financial report that just makes you do a double take. It looks, well, unbelievable. Today, we're diving into exactly one of those cases. It's the story of a Nepalese microfinance company that posted some numbers that are just, honestly, they're mind-bending. So let's just jump right in.
So let's just start with the big question, right? The one that this whole story hangs on. How on earth does a company, I mean any company, manage to grow its profit by over 13,000% in just 1 year? You're probably thinking that has to be a typo. Well, stick around because it's absolutely not. There it is, 13,785%. Let that sink in for a second. That's not a hypothetical. That is the actual audited net profit increase for a company called Aarambha Chautari Lagubita. To put that in perspective, their profit went from about 680,000 Nepalese rupees to over 9.44 crore. And if you're not familiar, a crore is 10 million. So we're talking about a jump from thousands of rupees to over 94 million. So yeah, the big question is, how did they do it? Okay, so to get our heads around this just astronomical leap, we've got to peel back the layers of their financials. And what you find is that, it's not magic. It's actually the result of two very specific, very powerful things happening at the exact same time. So what are they? Well, here are the two big drivers. First, they just got a lot better at their main job, their core business of lending money. But the second one, now this is the wild part. They somehow managed to get back a ton of money that they had already considered lost for good. Let's dig into that first part, the core business. All right, driver number one is something called net interest income. This is basically the bread and butter for any bank or lender, right? It's what they make from the loans they give out minus what they have to pay for the money they borrow. And theirs jumped by almost 32%. It went from 28 crore up to 37 crore rupees. Now that on its own is a really solid, healthy sign of growth. It's a great foundation. Okay, before we get to that second, crazier part of the story, we need to get one term straight. It's called the impairment charge. And it's actually pretty simple. Imagine you're a lender. You give out 100 loans. You're not naive, right? You know that statistically, a few of those people probably aren't going to pay you back. So you smartly set aside a little pot of money just to cover those expected bad loans. That pot of money, that's the impairment charge. And this is where the story gets really dramatic. Instead of adding more money to that bad loan pot, Aarambha Chautari did the complete opposite. They had what's called a massive reversal of that charge. What does that mean? It means they actually went out and collected on loans they had already written off, loans they thought were gone. And because of that, they got to add 2.38 crore rupees right back into their profits. So think about it. This isn't just new money coming in. It's like finding a giant bag of cash you were convinced you'd lost forever. Okay, so now we know how that crazy profit number happened. But who is this company? What do they actually do on a day-to-day basis? How big is this whole operation? Let's take a look inside their core business and see what makes it tick. So any lender needs money to lend out, right? And for Aarambha Chautari, that money comes from two main places. The biggest chunk, about 64%, is from borrowing, from other financial institutions. The other 36% comes from deposits from their own customers, pretty much like a normal bank. You put it all together, and they're working with a funding pool of over 5 billion rupees. That's the cash they have to play with. And what do they do with all that cash? Well, pretty simple. They turn right around and lend it out to their customers. Last year alone, they provided over 5.3 billion rupees in loans and advances. This is the engine that drives the whole company. Look, a massive profit jump is awesome to see, but it doesn't mean a thing if the business itself is built on shaky ground, right? Is it stable? Is it healthy? So let's do a quick health check. We're going to focus on the quality of those 5.3 billion rupees in loans they've given out. And a great way to check a lender's health is to look at its non-performing loan ratio. That's just a fancy way of saying bad loans, the percentage of loans that are in real danger of not being paid back. And whoa, just look at that drop. They literally cut their bad loan ratio in half, from over 4% all the way down to about 2%. That tells you their loan quality and the risk management have gotten so much better.
That is exactly what an investor loves to see.
So we've got this huge profit surge, and we have a much healthier business under. So what? What does all this mean if you're an investor, if you actually own a piece of this company? Let's bring it all home and look at the bottom line for shareholders.
For any investor, one of the magic numbers is EPS, or earnings per share. It's super simple. How much profit did the company make for every single share out there? Well, last year, that number was, it was basically nothing, just 0.19 rupees. But this year, it absolutely exploded to over 25 rupees per share. I mean, that's not just an improvement, that's a complete transformation of shareholder value.
So let's just lay out the key takeaways for an investor. You've got that incredible EPS of 25.72. Then you have a price-to-earnings ratio sitting at about 42. And the net worth per share, which is kind of like the on-paper value of a single share, is over 156 rupees. When you put all those pieces together, they tell the story of one seriously dramatic and very, very profitable year. And all of this brings us to the big final question, doesn't it? We've seen this absolutely stunning turnaround. Part of it was good, solid business growth, but a huge chunk of it was that massive, maybe one-time only reclaim of lost cash. So here's what we have to ask. Was this just a fluke? A perfect storm of good luck and accounting quirks that won't happen again? Or does that dramatic drop in bad loans signal something more? Could this be the start of a truly sustainable new chapter of high-quality growth for the company? Now that is the billion-rupee question. Thanks for joining us on The Explainer.
Yeah.